Welcome to the Mull and Wine Podcast. I'm your host, Dawn Melissa. I'm so excited to finally get this podcast going, but I'm gonna need y'all to bear with me a little bit. It's gonna be bumpy at first. Give me some time, give me a couple of episodes. This episode will be an introductory episode. I'm gonna give you a quick backstory. Actually, I don't know if it's gonna be that quick, but I will tell you a little bit about myself. I'm also gonna talk about Kelly Rowland and Will Smith. I know that sounds a little random, but it'll come together. And then I'm going to leave you with a takeaway, an overarching theme, if you will. And I hope to do that for every episode. So grab a drink of your choice and let's get started. I was born in Newark, New Jersey, but I grew up in Pennsylvania. It's funny to say grew up in, as though the growing up was gradual. But when you're a Black child coming from a Black neighborhood and you're suddenly thrust into an all-white environment, the growing up isn't gradual. It's kind of instantaneous, not by choice, not by any Black child's choice. It's just how it is, unfortunately. All of a sudden, I had to watch the tone of my voice, the volume of my voice, the intonation, I guess. If I was going to avoid ridicule or confrontation, I had to code switch. It was mentally taxing. Why am I walking around feeling like a 40-year-old woman with a mortgage and a car payment? I'm 9. But yeah, I learned pretty early on that my childhood was going to be very different than the white kids. What was it? Not even a month into living in Pennsylvania, I was at the library with my family and we were checking out books, as you do. And this little white girl goes skipping by. Girl couldn't have been more than 6 years old, but she goes skipping past us and she's with her mom and she's like, Mom, the nigger is reading. I can still hear her voice in my head to this day. Me and my siblings were like, first of all, what's a nigger? Because we'd never heard it with a hard ER at the time. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of like, that's a whole new word, isn't it? And my mom had to explain to us what was going on. And I remember it was either my mom or my dad. They were like, they teach their kids young how to hate. Like, I think it was my dad because I can hear him saying, teaching them young. But yeah, that hurt our feelings. That stung a little bit. We were kids. We were innocent. We didn't do anything wrong. So why did they hate us? It's a question that Black people all over the world will continue to ask ourselves until we finally manage to dismantle white supremacy, if it ever happens. I think it was Don Cheadle. As Don Cheadle said, it's going to be the next generation that makes a change or something like that. I have to look up the quote again, but he's absolutely right. Because I think these Gen Zers and Gen Alphas, they're going to make a difference. But I digress. When my parents said that they teach their kids young how to hate, I understood then. The hatred wasn't just going to come from adults. It was going to come from my peers. And so I learned to expect it. At every turn, I learned to expect it. I braced myself for it. From the moment that they learned how to talk, I expected that one day they might call me the N-word. And they did. I remember there was a time when my neighbor, a girl who we literally studied together all the time. Like, we were kind of nerdy and we got good grades and we would study together. And one day I got a better grade than she did on a test. To be honest, I was being immature. I was teasing her. I was like, oh my God, I beat you. It literally was just like by a point. You know what I'm saying? So I really was being silly. This girl got so mad, so red in the face. And she was like, it doesn't matter. You're still a nigger. And I was, again, stunned. I'm like, did I deserve that? Did my teasing you over 1 point really warrant me being called that word? So yeah, it is fucked up. It's like, how you going to be my neighbor for however many years and study with me and everything, and then call me that because I beat you by 1 point? And that's the thing. Them white folks are like, listen, we're cool, but you're not going to be better than me. You're not going to do better than me. I share all this because those experiences are kind of the foundation on which my personality was built. Again, not by my choice. It's just the environment I grew up in. And as an adult, I'm still unlearning a lot of things. But I do sometimes feel like I have to think 1 or 2 steps ahead of other people just to avoid drama or danger. It's still exhausting, even more so because now I actually am a 40-year-old with a mortgage payment. Anyway, moving on. I got accepted into New York University, so I left Pennsylvania behind and moved to New York, where I studied film and television production. I was so bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, naive, and innocent. I really liked living in New York. I feel like that's where I actually grew up, if that makes sense. I thought I wanted to be a film director, so that was sort of my focus when I got to NYU. But after the first semester, I realized it was going to be hell working with white men, working with men in general, but specifically white men. That was sort of my first taste, my first brush with that white male entitlement, because I was working alongside white boys. They were, 18, 19 years old, my age, and they were making it very difficult for me to enjoy my experience as a film student. They were bullies. They took over projects. They spoke down to me like they were fucking massa. And I was like, oh no. Oh no. And I'm not proud of myself for giving up so quickly, but I felt like I'm paying tuition here too. I should be able to experience all this fully. I didn't want to have to walk on eggshells around fucking white men, while I'm paying tuition to be at the same school as them. I had to do that. Growing up in Pennsylvania, I thought, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. That was, again, my naivety. I thought that once I grow up, I don't have to walk on eggshells around fucking white people. And so I was shocked at the behavior of these young white boys, but their reaction to me speaking up for myself. Like, I'm like, why are you getting red in the face? Why are you angry? Why are you raising your voice at me? Why are you yelling at me like I'm your fucking child? And, as a Black girl, I'm not going to get people on side. They're going to be like, oh, Dawn, you're being sensitive. Oh, Dawn, calm down. Especially the teachers. They're not going to take my side over a white boy side. So I was like, I don't need this stress while I'm in school. And I don't need these boys fucking with my grade, because at one point we were supposed to give evaluations on each other, and I happened to read this evaluation that this white boy gave of me, and I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I was like, you're fucking with my grade now. I don't appreciate it. So after the first year, I just decided to switch to TV and writing. Yes, still male dominated, still white male dominated, but at NYU, most of the boys, they were in the film program, so I didn't have to work with them as much, and that made my life a hell of a lot easier. I'm not saying that I thought the real world outside of NYU would be easy or whatever. I just felt like I'm paying to be here. I shouldn't have to suffer. Fuck this shit. I tell you, the way my brain works, it's crazy. It's a wonder. I remember I was interning at this one production office, and, I worked underneath these 2 production assistants. They were the office PAs. One of them was cool. Like, I liked her a lot. She was a Black girl. The other one was a white boy. They weren't much older than me, And so at one point, me and the white boy, we had a disagreement. Like, we didn't agree on something. And he was like trying to speak sternly to me. And I said, well, whatever. And I said his name. And he was like, what did you say? And I looked at him and I was like, I said, whatever. But it wasn't like I got aggressive or my inflection changed. Like, I wasn't like, I said whatever. You didn't hear, like, I didn't do any of that. I just looked at him and kind of blinked. I was like, I said whatever. And, this is how I talk now. I'm sorry. I was brainwashed into talking this fucking way. So I'm like, I said whatever. Like, in my head, I'm thinking, he didn't hear me? Like, did he really not hear me? And the black girl's like looking from him to me to him. And there's just this silence. And I honestly didn't understand what was going on, because he said one thing, I said another thing, and I said, okay, whatever. He did not like that I said whatever. And we're just standing there in silence, the 3 of us. And then finally he shrugs and he's like, well, okay. And he leaves the office. And I turned to the Black girl. I'm shrugging. I'm like, what'd I do? I did the Cobby Lane. I did the Cobby Lane shrug. Before there was Cobby Lane, there was me. Before there was Cobby Lane, there was me shrugging like that. Because I look at her and I'm like, what did I do? What did I do? It was just one of the many times I guess I put my foot in my mouth. Also, the way my brain works, it's just, neurodivergency, it'll do that to you. Anyway, moving on, I want to share a quick story, a quick side story. Not long after graduating from NYU, I got this job at an advertising agency. It's my first real job, first real full-time job. And on my first day, they were like, okay, Dawn, go take your lunch. So I'm walking down Lafayette Street, right? Looking for some place to eat. And there's this man walking toward me, and he's like with two other people. And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, oh, he looks familiar. Where do I know him from? You can probably guess where this is going. Basically, he's walking toward me, and we looking at each other, and I'm trying to figure out where I know him from. So finally, for some reason, I deduced that he must work in my office at my new job. And maybe I saw him in passing or something. Like, when I tell you my brain. And so since it's my first day on the job, I feel like, oh, I should be nice. I want to make a good impression. So I wave at him and I'm like, hey, how are you? And he looks so confused. Like he's confused, but he's also clearly trying to be polite, and he waves at me and he's like, I'm doing okay. How are you? And I'm like, I'm good. Okay, well, see you inside, and I kind of point at the building. And he, I see him look at the building. He looks at me and he still looks so confused. And I'm just like, well, I don't know what to say. Maybe he won't, remember me when I go back in the building. I hope he doesn't say anything to anyone else. So I continue on my merry little way. And it was about 2 blocks later when I realized that was Don Cheadle. I literally talked to Don Cheadle like we were old friends. I'm Bridget Jones. I'm Bridget Jones, honestly. So yeah, that was a long time ago. I had always hoped to cross paths with him again in a professional setting, like a collaborative capacity, not as a fan. And the plan was to tell him about that story. I mean, of course, he wouldn't remember it, but in my head, I would tell him that story and we'd have a nice laugh. So after a few years, I moved to LA. I was going to focus on writing and acting. But instead of doing the practical thing and taking an acting class, I decided to enroll in a musical theater school. I won't say that choosing musical theater school was a bad choice. I will say that I chose the wrong musical theater school. It was a rough experience and a waste of 2 years. But after those 2 years, I loved living in LA. The LA vibe is unmatched. As far as writing and acting was concerned, I wasn't making the progress that I'd hoped to. After a while, it started to get to me. I was getting older and I was thinking about the future. I started to ask myself, is this something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life? Is this career the thing I will love more than anything else for the rest of my life? And as soon as I started asking those questions, there came an opportunity to move to London. Moving to London was crazy. I never thought I would live there. I always wanted to visit London, but living there was just never something that I considered or thought was possible. But it turns out it was, and it's all about timing, honestly. I ended up going to graduate school and getting my master's degree at Regent's University, London. And getting my master's degree was more about being able to live in London. I'm not saying I didn't take it seriously, but I didn't. Anyway, I have a master's degree in media communications. I now have 2 degrees and a musical theater certificate that I don't use at all. Woohoo! Living in London was awesome. It was exciting. I mean, it was a culture shock. I'm not going to lie. I was coming from Los Angeles, sunny Los Angeles. I was coming from a slower paced city. I was coming from a vibe, a totally different vibe, like legalized marijuana vibe. You know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden I'm in this fast paced city. I could barely keep up. And then it was kind of a shock to experience a little bit of rejection from the Black British people. I had no idea there was like this weirdness between Black Americans and other Black people around the world. I had no idea. And I know there's somebody listening who's going to say, oh, you Americans, you think the world revolves around you. No, that's not the case in my situation. I wasn't very well versed about what was happening in other parts of the world, but in my head, I thought if you look like me, then we can relate in some way, and we probably are related in some way. So rejection from Black Brits hit hard. And then, of course, British people themselves are kind of cold and closed off. So suffice to say, I didn't make a lot of close friends, but living in London prepared me for the loneliness and isolation that I was going to experience once I moved to Italy. Wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. So while living in London, I got married and then we eventually moved to Italy. And here I am, 7 years later, living in Italy. And wow, the stories I could tell. I lost 2 babies, then sort of learned the hard way that there are a lot of people out there who are not empathetic, who simply don't care. They don't give a fuck. Strangers, sure. I don't expect you to care about me. But people I knew, like my husband's friends, families, no condolences, no nothing, just indifference. And that was really shocking because for the longest time, I thought that my husband's friends were my friends. Oh no, they let me know. As soon as I moved to Italy, it was like people were embarrassed to know a Black girl. That's what it felt like. And not just my husband's friends. It was like Italians were like, oh, I've never been friends with a Black girl before. And, imagine it with an Italian accent. And I was like, wait a minute, is this fucking high school? Am I the nerdy bando who the popular jocks don't want to be friends with? And I was a bando, by the way. But yeah, that's what I was feeling. It wasn't until after I lost these babies that I became aware once again of the real world and how it worked. My world was shattered. I slipped into the darkest of darkest places. I was drowning. I was suicidal for a while. And then one day something told me, listen, Dawn, you got to get through this. You got to get through this. No one's going to save you. And so it took a lot of effort, a lot of work, but I finally pulled myself out of that dark place. I finally put myself back together. I'm still a work in progress, but I got myself out of that place. I did it myself. And that's probably my proudest achievement. And so here we are now, June 2024. I've been wanting to start a podcast for a long time. I put it off for a few different reasons, I guess. I mean, fear of failure, definitely. Laziness. I've got a lack of discipline that I really need to deal with. I'm working on it. But then something unexpected happened and I just couldn't deny it anymore. I couldn't put it off anymore. I had a dream. I had a dream. Not only did I have a dream, but specific people came to me in my dream. And no, I'm not talking about my ancestors, but yes, specific people came to me in my dream and they were celebrities, white male celebrities, right? Okay, let me set the scene for you, okay? So there's 3 parts to the dream, or should I say 3 acts. It's almost like a typical 3-act structure in a screenplay. In the first part of the dream, Act 1, I am trying to make my way down the stairs into a subway station. Actually, I think I'm in London. I think the dream takes place in London. I'm getting a London feeling. So I'm going to call it a tube. So I'm trying to get down into the tube station, but it's really crowded on those steps. Everyone's going in the same direction, mind you, but we are moving at a glacial pace. We're basically not moving. We're all just kind of standing in the same place, trying to make our way down those stairs. But everyone's really calm. No one's pushing or shoving, but I am feeling a growing sense of irritation because I've been standing on these steps for a while and I'm feeling frustrated. It's not really about missing the train. I just feel like I should be past the point where I am. I feel like I should be at least a little bit further down those stairs. But unfortunately, I can't move. I can't get beyond this point. I am stuck in the same place. In the next part of the dream, Act 2, I guess, I'm trying to get out of the tube station. I'm trying to get above ground. But this time, the energy is totally different. Everyone's pushing and shoving. It's a whole frenzied, chaotic mess. And my anxiety is at an all-time high. In real life, I hate taking the subway. I hate being underground. And in my dream, it was no different. I have massive anxiety. I'm afraid I'm never going to get above ground. And every time I try to climb the steps, I'm kind of being shoved down, shoved backwards, because there's somebody behind me who's trying to move past me. There is no etiquette in this dream. I'm kind of panicking a little bit. I'm afraid I'm never going to get out of this tube station. I'm never going to see the light of day or feel sunshine again. But there's this girl with me, and she feels like a friend. And she's gripping my hand, and she's trying to pull me up those stairs with her. And she's trying to encourage me. She's like, come on, Dawn, we got to get upstairs. We got to get out of here. And I'm trying, but I'm failing. I'm flailing. And so finally I say, you know what, girl, go ahead. Just go ahead of me. I will catch up to you later. And she's like, no. She refuses to let go of my hand. She's like, no, girl, we got to go. Come on. But I'm like ready to give up. I'm like, it's just too much. It's too much. I said, it's fine, girl. I will catch up to you. So finally, reluctantly, she lets go of my hand, and she sort of immediately swept up into the crowd of people. And I'm just like, there. I'm still there. So the final part of this dream, the third act, is sort of the most important part of the dream. The meat and potatoes, if you will. It takes place in a hotel, a luxurious hotel. Think about Maldives somewhere. It's giving very aqua colors, chill, tranquil vibes. And I'm in the lobby, and I am searching for the elevator because I need to get to my room. But I'm having trouble finding the elevator. I'm just looking and I'm looking. No elevators. And so then at one point I get distracted because I see this painting hanging on a wall. And it's a beautiful painting. I couldn't describe it to you, but apparently I'm transfixed because I forget all about the elevator. And so I'm looking at this painting when a man moves in next to me. And I'll look at him and I immediately recognize him. He's a celebrity. I'm not going to say his name because I lust after this man in my dream. In my dream, I'm lusting after him. So I don't know. I'm just not going to say his name. But I will give you a hint. He was in Scream too. He was also in The Crazies, by the way. And so the version of him that I'm dreaming about is in The Crazies, so a bit older. And he's looking fine. Okay, he's looking fine. I've always thought this actor was kind of cute and everything, but not fine, but he's looking fine. Yeah, I'm objectifying him a little bit because, not too many men age well, but somehow he has. I mean, you know what? I'm not going to go too much into detail about this part of the dream. Suffice to say, I was attracted to this man. I was like, oh, he look good. He look good, okay? Anyway, he's standing next to me, and we're both looking at the painting. And then after a while, he goes, beautiful painting, isn't it? And I'm like, I don't know what to say. Like, I'm feeling kind of goofy, because this is a celebrity. First of all, this is a celebrity. Second of all, I'm attracted. I'm hot behind the ears, you know what I'm saying? And I doubt people really know this about me. But when I'm attracted to a man, I get weird, when I'm attracted to a man, I get weird. Not creepy weird, but just awkward. I'm flirting with you if it seems like I'm being weird, if I seem a little bit off. I'm not flirting with you if it seems like I'm flirting with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not attracted to you if it seems like I'm flirting with you. That probably makes no sense, but I know for a fact there are other women out there who operate the same way. So I feel no ways about this. If you've known me and you've assumed I was flirting with you, yeah, I'm sorry to hurt your feelings, but I wasn't. I wasn't flirting. So anyway, he's like, beautiful painting, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah. Like, I'm just goofy. I don't know what to say. I'm awkward. And while I'm trying to think of something clever to say, he says, well, it has to do with slavery, right? And then it's awkward because what do I even say to that? I mean, I don't see the connection to this painting and slavery, but who am I to argue with this white man? I mean, wouldn't he know better? His ancestors, I did mention he's white, right? Anyway, so I just say, yeah, I guess. And I don't know where to go from there. I don't know what to say at this point, but fortunately, he takes the lead. He looks out the window and he's like, it's a beautiful night, isn't it? And I'm like, is this how they flirt? What's going on here? Anyway, he's like, it's a beautiful night. And we both stare out the window. There's a beautiful full moon. And I'm like, yeah. And it's also raining. It's like this very light, misty summer rain. Oh, so romantic. I love a light, misty summer rain. So yeah, it's feeling real romantic. So then he says, well, I'm going to go outside. Do you want to join me? And I hesitate because I remember I'm supposed to be looking for these elevators so I can get to my room. So I hesitate and I'm like, oh, I don't know. He's like, really? I mean, are you sure? It's just a very suggestive, flirty thing. Like, clearly, I'm tempted. And I know that if we go outside in that misty rain with the full moon, We're gonna bang. And I'm into it. I'm for it. Like, I'm so ready, right? But I know I gotta get to these elevators. So I'm hesitant. I'm about to say no. But then he steps outside and I'm still watching him through the glass window and everything. And he's just looking so good. So I'm kind of slowly following him, being drawn to him almost. And just as I'm about to step outside, I notice this table full of men. And this table full of men is just so out of place, like I was not expecting it. So we've got a table full of men, and I recognize that all of the celebrities are white men, and the non-celebrities are Black men. And they're all sitting at the table, drinking whiskey, smoking cigars, and having a good time. And then one of the men looks at me, and it's Matthew McConaughey. Matthew McConaughey, okay? He looks at me, he smiles, and he says, "Would you like to join us?" Immediately, I'm like, of course I want to join you. A white man is offering me, a Black woman, a seat at the table. I'm not going to turn that down. But just as I'm about to step outside again, that's when I notice the mud. I can't believe I hadn't noticed it before, but there's mud directly under this table where these men are sitting. And I can see that the table is slowly sinking into the mud. But the men don't seem to notice it, or if they do, they don't mind. But this table is slowly sinking into the mud. I can see the worms and the bugs. It's gross. And that's also when I noticed that I'm barefoot. Now I feel weird because I'm like, why am I barefoot? So once again, I hesitate and I look at Matthew and I look at the other celebrities. And then I look at the Black men sitting at the table. Remember, they're the ones who aren't the celebrities. And as I look at them now, I see that they look strange. Like, they're looking kind of sickly. Their skin is kind of grayish. Their cheeks are sunken in. There's dark circles under their eyes. They don't look right. But they're just drinking their whiskey, smoking their cigar, still having a good time. But I'm alarmed. The mud, the men, all of it was just too much. So I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be here anymore. This isn't right. So I step back inside the hotel and I look one last time at Matthew. He's just looking at me. He's scrutinizing me. He's observing me. He hasn't tried to encourage me or insist in any way. He knows that I've clocked what's going on, that I've figured it out. So I back away and I'm like, I have to get back to that painting. I need to find those elevators. I don't know. I just need to get away from here. At this point, I forgot all about the other celebrity who had been tempting me sexually. And I'm over that. I'm over all those celebrities. I need to get to the elevators. I need to get to my room. And finally, I find the elevators. And as I'm waiting for one of them, another man slides up next to me. And this time it's Greg Kinnear. It is so random at this point. Greg Kinnear stands next to me and he looks at me. And I look at him and I kind of nod like, hello. And he says, "You made the right choice." Now, I know what he's talking about, but I ask anyway, why do you say that? And he says, "Don't let yourself get sucked into the mud." Now, it's been months. It's been months since I've had this dream. So it could have been, don't let yourself get sucked into the mud, or don't get stuck in the mud. I think they both apply here. So either one works. No further explanation is offered. The elevator doors open and Greg Kinnear gets on. And he looks at me as if waiting to see if I would join him. And that's when the dream ends, actually. So I don't know what I do. I don't know if I get on that elevator. I don't know if I ever make it to my room. I wake up then, and that's the end of it. So what does all that have to do with Kelly Rowland and Will Smith? So recently, Kelly Rowland attended the Cannes Film Festival. She looked stunning in her red dress. She was just having her moment. Or at least she was trying to have her moment until that little troll, the security, got all up in her space, stepped on her dress, put her hands on Kelly. Like, I actually hadn't seen the part where she touched Kelly, but I did see the other part. And apparently she was talking out of her neck. She was being disrespectful to Kelly. And so Kelly had to put her in her place. Unfortunately, that didn't deter this woman from being a troll the rest of the night and the next night too, I guess. I really wish that she'd gotten more than a little shove. You know what I'm saying? Like, a nice bop on the head might have helped her come to her senses. Like, this troll was really trolling. And I wish nothing. I wish nothing but bad things on her. I hope she got fired. Kelly was having her moment, and this troll was trying to pull her into the mud. Kelly's up there living her life, living her best life, looking amazing, and this troll wanted to pull her into the mud. The mud being trying to make Kelly feel small, make her feel insignificant, trying to pull rank or something, trying to wield power. I don't know. Powerless people be doing the most. But Kelly rose above it. I don't want to say that this troll successfully pulled Kelly into the mud, because I don't think that was the case. I think Kelly saw the mud and stepped right over it, as she should. Kind of like in my dream when I saw the mud and was like, oh, no, I'm not going there, and kind of stepped back into the hotel. I feel like that's what Kelly did. But there was mud. There was mud present. There was bullshit. The mud is the bullshit. So after giving that example, I'm sure you can guess where I'm going with the whole Will Smith thing. First and foremost, I want to say I saw Bad Boys Ride or Die, and I really enjoyed it. I'm not really even into action movies like that. I will give an action comedy movie a chance, which is why I love the Bad Boy franchise. But for the most part, I am into mysteries and thrillers and horror, slow burners, you know? But I committed to the Bad Boys franchise, so I'm happy for Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. And here's the thing, there's some people out there who really thought that we had canceled Will Smith. And I was just like, who said that? Who said that? Who said, like, if you're not going to cancel Brad Pitt, whose children have taken his name off of, you know what I'm saying? Like, have removed his name from the lineup, removed his last name from the lineup. So he must have done something real bad for them to do this. If you're not going to cancel Brad Pitt, you have no right to try to cancel Will Smith. And this is the thing. This is what I said. When it comes to Black actors who are as successful as Will Smith, who are just so likable and who've never really done anything offensive in a stellar, like 30-year career, maybe more. When it comes to them, we'll let you know. We'll let you know if they're canceled. If we're still letting Tyler Perry make his, completely embarrassing films and TV shows, then what makes you think we're going to just give up on Will Smith because of one little smack? Anyway, let me get back on track. So what does Will have to do with my dream? Chris Rock. Chris Rock and that slap from the Oscars. To recap, Chris Rock got slapped. And he definitely deserved it. Harassing Jada Pinkett Smith for all these years. A lot of pent-up frustration, including my own. We're so tired. We are so tired. It's kind of like how we feel about these coon-ass black men who get online and talk about how much they hate black girls. We get it. Shut up about us. Like, hate us. Go to your preference, but why you gotta mention us all the time? This is how tired we are of Chris Rock always going after Jada Pinkett Smith. Just because she rejected him? I'm going by that theory that she rejected him. He could not get none. And he took the opportunity at the Oscars to just, try to be funny. Chris Rock hasn't been funny since he let all them white people say the N-word around him and he was just giggling and kikiing. But yeah, Chris Rock was the troll. Chris Rock was the troll who tried to pull Will Smith into the mud. Will was having his night. He was about to win an Oscar. This man is so brilliant. He's so lovely. From what we know of this billionaire celebrity, he's lovely. Side note, I think my favorite movie of Will's will always be Pursuit of Happiness. Like, I cried so hard at the end of that movie. Pursuit of Happiness it will always be my favorite Will Smith movie. He's a versatile actor. He's a versatile and a very, very good actor. And he was finally getting his moment to shine. In this instance, I will say that there was a momentary slip up on Will's part. He slapped Chris Rock. I'm not mad at it. The troll definitely deserved it, but we lost focus for a moment. That night was supposed to be about Will and his achievement, and Chris Rock ended up getting attention and sympathy from white folks. Like, how is the most historically violent demographic of people? How are they horrified? How are they surprised? Amy fucking Schumer opened her flap to say stuff. Even Jim Carrey had the nerve to say something. Even though what he said kind of made sense with the whole, like, suing and those images being online for, like, I could look up Chris Rock being slapped right now if I wanted to have a good laugh. So Jim Carrey kind of made sense when he was like, those images are going to be online forever, so he should get compensation. It makes sense, but I still didn't want Jim Carrey's ass to say anything. The white community should have just sat this one out. So yeah, that's the case. That's the thing. Chris Rock pulled focus. He pulled focus for a moment, but then what happened? Will got it back. He got back on solid ground. He got out of the mud. So that's why I think that the advice from Greg Kinnear makes sense, Don't get sucked into the mud. Don't get stuck in the mud. I think of Kelly Rowland and Will Smith when I remember that dream. I had that dream months ago. I had that dream at the start of the year. At the start of 2024, I had that dream. So I want to add this part here. I don't personally care about these billionaires and these millionaires. Like, they don't know me from a can of paint. I don't know who they really are behind closed doors. I'm not a celebrity worshiper, but I will say that despite us living in two very different worlds, it's relatable. Things like this happen to all of us. Trolls will try to make us stumble, to fuck with our shit, to fuck us up. You know what I'm saying? It's all relatable. It happens to the best of us. Now, some of us can cry all the way to the bank, wipe away our tears with $100 bills or $5,000 bills. I bet those exist and we just don't know it. Some of us can swipe a black card and go off to some mystery island and hang out with a bunch of other billionaires and millionaires and just forget about it and be over it. Or just make another blockbuster hit. And the rest of us have to deal with it and shoulder the burden or whatever and then kind of get over it in our own way. If we can afford therapy or if we can afford a quick getaway or whatever, great. But at the end of the day, we all come across some mud now and again. So that takes us to the takeaway. Don't get sucked in the mud. If you happen to slip up and find yourself in some bullshit, don't get stuck there. Find your way out. Don't jump on every opportunity that comes up. Not every opportunity is for you. Sure, getting offered a seat at the table might seem awesome, but at what cost? I think about those Black men who were sitting at the table in my dream, literally sinking into the mud, but they didn't seem to care. They were like, oh, well, we here now. Keep the party going. Taking the wrong opportunities could cost you your dignity or simply lead you down the wrong path. So use discernment. And I know it seems strange. It's so strange that they were Black men, and maybe that is a whole other thing to unpack. But given how Black men act in Hollywood, Chris Rock being a prime example, I feel like my subconsciousness got it right. And I can't forget about the girl in my dream who was holding my hand, trying to pull me up from out of the tube. I'm thinking that means there might be someone out there who's still rooting for me, who wants to see me win. Or it could have been me helping myself. I don't know. I'm no dream expert. To sum up the dream, and cue the music because I'm about to get a little cheesy and sentimental here. I'm trying to reach a destination, and there are so many roadblocks in the way, and truth be told, some of them might be self-imposed. I dabble in self-sabotage from time to time. There's my debilitating fear of failure and a lack of discipline problem that I really need to address. Not to mention the nosedive my confidence took after moving to Italy. And I think my dream was trying to reveal these things to me. Let me know that that's not serving me. I have to stop doing that. Yes, I suffered a loss, and I'll never get over it. A part of me is gone forever. I'll never be the same Dawn Melissa that I was, and honestly, I hate that for myself. I hate that for myself. But it's time to let go of the old Dawn and find a way to embrace this new version of me so that I can move forward and finally reach my destination. This dream worked overtime to send me an important message, which makes me think maybe it was from my ancestors. I don't know. Either way, message received. I've been stuck in the same place for a very long time, and it's time to get unstuck. See, I told you it was going to be cheesy. Y'all don't believe me. And that's it. That's all I got for this first episode. I can't believe I re-recorded this thing 4 times. 4 times! Follow the Moulin Wine Podcast on Spotify and YouTube. It will be available on other streaming platforms eventually. But remember, I'm doing this all alone, so it's going to take a little more time. Little by little, I'll get there. You can also follow the Moulin Wine Podcast on Instagram for updates and also to engage. Talk to me. And one more time for the cheap seats in the back. If you come across some mud, remember Greg Kinnear's advice. Don't get sucked in the mud. Don't get stuck in the mud.